Lift your hearts up to the Lord.
Hallelujah, hallelujah. Spread the news that he is joy. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Sing in the mountains, sing in the meadows, sing hallelujah, God is joy.
Lift your hearts up to the Lord.
Hallelujah, hallelujah. Spread the news that he is truth. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Sing in the mountains, sing in the meadows, sing hallelujah, God is truth. Lift your hearts up to the Lord. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Spread the news that he is love. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Sing in the mountains, sing in the meadows, sing hallelujah, God is love. Sing in the mountains, sing in the meadows, sing hallelujah, God is love.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Our reading this morning is taken from Rays of the One Light, Weekly Commentaries on the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita by Swami Kriyananda. This is week number 9. By thinking can we arrive at understanding. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramhansa Yogananda. There are many places in the Gospels where we see Jesus in open conflict with the Pharisees. That is to say, with man-made as opposed to true mystical tradition. In the Gospel of St. Matthew, chapter 15, we see a good example of how they and he, quote, locked horns. Then some of the scribes and Pharisees from Jerusalem came and asked Jesus, "Why do your disciples break our ancient tradition and eat their food without washing their hands properly first?" Jesus, after scolding them for their hypocrisy in observing lesser rules so carefully while ignoring the much more important ones, said, "Listen and understand this thoroughly. It is not what goes into a man's mouth that makes him common or unclean. It is what comes out of a man's mouth that makes him unclean." It wasn't that Jesus counseled against such wholesome practices as washing one's hands before eating. In an age, however, when lesser rules were given too much importance relative to the truly important observances, cleansing the heart of impure desires, for example, he emphasized the supreme importance of loving God and of communing with him. The Pharisees, the orthodox religionists of his day, in other words, had brought true religion down to a level of intellectual hair-splitting. They mistakenly considered the way to understanding to lie through a minefield of definitions, which they tried to refine to ultimate exactitude. Jesus taught, however, that the intellect alone can never lead one to truth. Without love, indeed, there is no ultimate verity. Without fixity of purpose, born of the heart's devotion, the intellect wanders endlessly. It cannot settle for long on anything. As the Bhagavad Gita says in the 2nd chapter, the intellects of those who lack fixity of spiritual purpose are inconstant, their interests endlessly ramified. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om, Om, Om.
And the minister was getting all caught in the wire for the mic, and the little girl whispers to her mother, she says, "Mom, if he gets loose, will he hurt us?" I won't hurt anybody. Well, good morning, everybody. Aloha. How is everybody today? Yay. Thank you all for coming today. It's a joy to be back. We missed you all. So let's begin with a reading from Whispers from Eternity. And this is Yogananda's book of prayer demands and poems. And this is, drumroll, number 37. Into the temple of peace come, thou, O God of joy. Into the shrine of my devotion come. O bliss God, sanctify the sanctuary of my goodness by thy presence. Almighty Allah, hover above thy solitary minaret of waiting expectations. Lo, the mosque of my mind exudes the frankincense of perfect stillness. Come, Lord, I am listening for the silent tread of thy footsteps. In the temple of my self-unfoldment, I await thy coming. Into the invisible temple of my prayer, built of shining crystal blocks of devotion, come thou daily and receive the humble offerings of my heart, renewed constantly by love. Om, peace. Amen. So our topic this morning, by thinking, can we arrive at understanding? What do you think? We were having a lot of jokes with this topic before we came down. One thought, Daiva said, maybe we should just not think about it and just chant the whole time, because our other topic is devotion. And then someone else said, don't think too much about it. And then I have all these pages of notes, and I was like, what was I thinking? But it's a wonderful topic, and it's lovely that it comes up early in the year, because it's a reminder of what is important to truly cultivate. It's our devotion. This is not about throwing out the mind or the intellectual process. In fact, when we study the art and science of Raja Yoga, a big part of that class series is the experience. We go deep in our spiritual practices. We learn the energization exercises, we learn some hatha yoga, we learn the practice of meditation. But we also have a big part of the evening is the yoga philosophy. So it's not about throwing all of that out, but it's remembering that we don't get all the answers from the intellect or from that process. Okay, and it can give us the answers that we're seeking, but it doesn't give us the whole picture. Sri Yukteswar, who was known as a Jnani yogi, a yogi of deep wisdom and spiritual insight, he said to one of his disciples that in the pursuit of truth, in the pursuit of knowing God, this is not the age of wisdom. Here he is, a Jnani yogi, saying this is not the age of wisdom. He said this is the age of devotion. Using the mind can be a little bit like a trap. It's like walking into a labyrinth or one of those corn mazes, you don't know which way to go. When we were in Hawaii, they have, on the island of Oahu, Dole pineapple, I guess, is centered there. And one of the attractions is this big maze shaped like a pineapple. And they said, it could take, I don't know how many hours to get through there. And we said, no, I don't think we'll do that. We didn't want to get lost in the maze, but that's what happens, right? You get stuck to a dead end, and then you have to retrace your steps till you can find yourself out, find your way out. So if the mind is this tricky thing, how can we use it? We can't just again throw out the mind. We have the mind. Well, first things first, if we get the leader in place, the mind will follow the heart, right? The heart's the leader. It will justify whatever the heart wants. There's this story that we tell often in relation to this topic. I know I've told it before. I've heard it from other people who speak about this topic. It's probably become lore now, but it's about Jyotish Novak. He and his wife are the spiritual directors of Ananda worldwide. Well, one day he wasn't feeling well, and somebody brought over a plate of chocolate chip cookies, right? Now, we all know the rule, right? But he thought about it for a moment, and he said, so now, what is it that heals? Joy. What would bring me more joy than eating a chocolate chip cookie? So what is devotion? As in our affirmation, it said it's that deep yearning of the heart to know God. In Yogananda's poem Samadhi, there's a line. It's a long poem. You can find it in Whispers from Eternity or in the autobiography of a yogi, but it said, by longer, thirsty, guru-given meditation comes this celestial samadhi. What is the reference to thirsty? Thirsty is that yearning of the heart to know God. When we awaken that, then we can experience Him. And I don't say develop, I say awaken, because we all have that inside of us. And we forget, we think we have to go, like we think we have to go and find it somewhere. Maybe it's on sale at Nordstrom's or wherever we want to go. We think we have to go find it, but it's inside of us. It's like we say, a brick of gold or a brick or something, you can bury it deep in the sand, right? A brick of gold. Doesn't matter how deep it is, it's still a brick of gold. It's still there. Our devotion is inside of us, but we're trying to awaken that. We're trying to peel away those layers that keep us from knowing that. We had a really fun class this weekend at Laurelwood, Patanjali, which is the Eightfold Path of Yoga. It's part of our Raja Yoga series. But we were talking about those things that keep us from knowing spirit, those things, guilt, the thought that I didn't energize this morning, or I didn't meditate, or I said an unkind word, and all those things keep us from knowing that devotion, from feeling that, because they block us off, they close the heart. They just constrict that opportunity to feel that. And the thought is to let that go and to remember, how do we awaken that devotion? It can be a single thing. It can be just the tiniest thing. In the Gita says, to him who offers me even a flower or a leaf with devotion, these are not big things in and of themselves. I myself come and receive his offering, the smallest expression of love. What is it that brings you joy? A chocolate chip cookie. What is it that brings you that joy? It could be the smallest thing, and by offering that, we don't know, that can ignite, that can just open up that flame of desire. It can awaken that flame of devotion and love. And again, letting go of those thoughts. Again, I'm not good enough, the guilt, I didn't do this, I didn't do that, how could I ever get there? Look at him, look at her, look at me. All these things, it's endless, isn't it? The mind, again, you can see how we can get trapped in a maze, whether in Hawaii or somewhere else, in a labyrinth and whatever, and not find our way back out. But we're reminded today, the masters are saying, don't worry about that. Doesn't mean you don't try and do your practices. Doesn't mean you don't show up. You still have to put that effort out. But remember the heart's love. Remember to awaken that devotion. It can be the smallest thing. Remembering that devotion, really, it's a natural state. It's who we are. We have a beautiful, we can look at photos of the masters, of saints. Sometimes you just see that devotion oozing from their eyes, from their smile, from their countenance. We had a beautiful example of this with Swami Kriyananda when he was alive. If you haven't read his story in The New Path, it's just a beautiful journey. But he talks about how when he first came to the path, he's intelligent. He was intelligent. He talked about that. He had his mind going full tilt. Yogananda would say to him, get devotion, develop your devotion. And at one point, Swami Kriyananda was new to the path, and Yogananda asked him, he said, have you read my book, The Autobiography of a Yogi? And Swami Kriyananda said, oh, yes, it was wonderful, sir. And Yogananda said, it's because it has my vibrations in it. And Swami Kriyananda thought, vibrations? I never thought of a book as having vibrations. Well, a little bit later on in the conversation, very innocently, Swami Kriyananda says, well, sir, I think I could help you. There were several split infinitives in the book. Maybe I could help you with your editing, or something like that. I'm paraphrasing. There it is, the mind, going. And Yogananda is so sweet. He didn't say anything. He just smiled, knowing that these things, too, we realize, again, we're not throwing the mind out. We're not throwing out that intellectual process, but we're remembering to awaken that heart's love and use it in everything that we're doing. Devotion can be just developed by our approach to life, seeing the daily blessings of our family, of our friends, the sunshine, our freedom, our health. As we were in Hawaii, people use the term aloha a lot, and it's a term of, is Bimal here? No, he's not here. Our Hawaiian expert. We use, aloha is used a lot as a greeting to say hello and goodbye, but we know there's a deeper meaning. So I went on the internet, grateful for the internet, and it talked about, there was this one site that said the spirit of aloha. It said the ancient Hawaiians lived their life with a beautiful blend of psychology and spirituality, possessing a deep understanding of the mind, combined with the knowledge of the laws of nature. They were outstanding psychologists and healers. These ancient ones knew that there within all of life exists the presence of God. Something still lives in the islands, and you could feel it. It's in the heart of the people that live there. It permeates the atmosphere with music, laughter, a childlike innocence. It speaks to your senses, right? It fills your soul. It's warm, it's open, it's loving, it's generous, it's colorful. When you arrive, as soon as you feel it, as soon as you step foot on the ground, this is a feeling of coming home. Well, they call this the spirit of aloha. But what is the deeper meaning? The significance is alo means face or presence. Ha means to breathe. The ha is the breath of God. Each time aloha is sounded, the very essence of God is echoed. When you speak the word aloha to another person, you are acknowledging the God within them and also within yourself, and a recognition of the divinity within all of life. So recognizing and seeing that divinity, that devotion in yourself, in each other, and in all of life, everything we do can be filled with that devotion. When we come up to the altar, we pray, we nod. At home, we touch something, we make it real. Even these pictures of the masters they can start disappearing, right? Even these books lose their whatever, but taking a moment, placing a flower near a photo, taking a moment to hold the book to your heart, feeling for the essence, feeling for the vibration of the scripture. Yogananda would say environment, we know this saying, many of us that have been part of Ananda, environment is stronger than willpower. If we put ourselves in environments that support the cultivation, the awakening of that devotion, that helps, right? We say location, location, location. We're thinking a lot about pilgrimage because we're planning a trip in the fall, but I was remembering my first time on pilgrimage to India. India's just a beautiful place to go, mainly because there's a reminder everywhere about the presence of God, of the divine, of spirit. And one of the favorite things we love doing is we love taking little taxi rides or little tut-tut, what are they called? They have all sorts of little vehicles they put you in. And they somehow, by the grace of God, move. And you don't want to think about it. You just want to... You just pray and you love God, that's all. But what was fun about every time you got into a different vehicle, you would always look at their dashboard. Here at home, many of us have a photo of Yogananda maybe, or someone that's dear to us, Swami Kriyananda, a little altar. But there you look at their dash and it is covered. I mean, you can't see the speed, and I don't know if they have that, but you can't see anything. And sometimes it even just trails all around the car and it's out. I mean, it's lovely everywhere you turn. I remember our bus driver kept stopping. I was like, where is he going? He kept running out because along the road there were all these little roadside altars, and he would stop to pranam. I mean, it's just imbued in their culture. It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. What can we do here? Again, location, location. Of course, coming here, we're reminded, but making an altar your home, making an altar in your heart. Everywhere you go, carry this portable altar. Create this dash. Maybe don't cover it completely, but in your car. Of course, we should always talk about chanting. Yogananda just encouraged it as an effective way of tuning into the heart's natural love. But chanting while concentrating in the heart helps us to relax and open the heart. Okay, door of my heart, open wide. I keep for thee. I keep for thee. Wilt thou come? Wilt thou come? Come to me. I keeping my heart open. Chanting is a wonderful way. Once we open the heart, we say the spiritual path is about 3.5 feet long, from the base of the spine to the spiritual eye. We're more than halfway there. So in opening the heart, come to the monthly kirtans, join the choir, sing your little hearts out, buy the CDs, play them, anything to awaken that natural love of the heart. And then lastly, Yogananda just said, God watches the heart. The more that we keep our heart in a devotional attitude for God, the more natural it's going to feel to us. Part of what we talked about this weekend is to relax away from those thoughts, those habits that keep us from remembering, relaxing away. Part of what happens when we get tense, we do that. It's a little hard to, is my heart open? It's a little hard, and so really a big part is just relaxing away. We know the techniques. Many of us have been practicing them for years. We know the philosophies, we know the teachings. Let's relax into that devotional presence. Let's relax into that spirit of aloha, inside of us, inside of each other, inside of every situation and whoever we meet. So God bless us all on our journey of devotion. And
Good morning, everyone. Thank you. I don't have a lot to add to what Gangamata said. I wanted to take a moment and just say how lovely it is to be back with you all. And while we enjoyed our time away, we feel deeply privileged to be back with you all. It's the friendships we share on the path to God realization is the greatest gift that we can possibly have. I would talk for just a moment about to those who have a difficult time with devotion. It doesn't come naturally to all of us. I recall how alien it was to me when I came to the path. My mind was good and strong. My service ethic was powerful. I loved being involved in life. And the concept of devotion I couldn't get there. And one of the things that helped me to understand it, because it is the key, as Gangamata noted, it's the key to success in this age. It's key to spiritual awakening. In fact, as Sri Yukteswar said, and she noted, not a single, she didn't know, as a single step, Sri Yukteswar said, not a single step on the path to God realization can be taken without the natural love of the heart. It has to be engaged or nothing will happen. Because the mind, our intellect, our service, follows our feeling, follows the heart. And I started to ponder this. Every time I would write Swami Kriyananda as a young person on the path, I would write him periodically with my litany of woes and all the things I was struggling with. And invariably his response would be, love God. And he never once, I don't think he ever once addressed the issues that I brought to him in a direct fashion. And so I pondered this. And he would recognize it. He would say, yes, I understand that you're struggling. I understand these things are issues for you. And then he would just say, love God, and with divine friendship, Swami Kriyananda. But I found something beginning to happen on the path with my struggles. I started to develop a conversation with the Master, a conversation with God. And it doesn't seem to matter, and Yogananda speaks to this, it doesn't seem to matter how you in the deepest recesses of your heart feel to speak to God. It can be to Divine Mother, it can be to Mother Mary, it can be to Jesus, it can be to Yogananda, it can be to any aspect of the divine, male, female, but developing a relationship. And I would find myself, a part of the path seems to be we get put into predicaments. Anybody notice that? And it's probably a part of life anyway. I mean, I think we just get put in predicaments. But I found on the path that I was trying to solve the predicaments in the direction of wholeness, in the direction. So I didn't want to just move the pieces around. I wanted to solve things in a way that reinforced the wholeness I was seeking. And so I started to talk to these guys. I started to pray. And I'd say, help me. That was my big prayer. Help me sort this out. Help me figure this out. Help me find my way through this moment. Help me resolve the misbehaviors. Help me find a way to bring harmony. And what I discovered was the more I did that, the more life started to solve itself. There was one particular weekend I've spoken to before, but it's still vivid in my mind as an indicator of how it works. Nothing was working. I'd become an equal opportunity offender. I just managed to, kind of make a hash out of every single part of my life. And I went into seclusion. I thought, So I went into seclusion Friday night. I downed tools at work, and I grabbed my little bottle of juice and my jug of water and my sadhana gear, and I went out to a little cabin in the woods. And I sat at the altar. I lit a candle, went outside and energized. I sat down and started practicing my Kriya practices. At some point, I fell over, went to sleep. I woke up, sat up, went outside and energized, came back in, and for Friday night, all through Saturday, Sunday morning, I just stayed at the altar. And Sunday morning it was time to go back, and I went to the village. I walked into the mailroom to grab my stuff. It was just after Sunday service. I thought I'll sneak back into the village, nobody will see me. And as I'm walking out of the mailroom, who should be coming up but one of the people who was most upset with me. And I'm walking out, and they looked up and they said, "Oh, it's so nice to see you." And it was every single thing that had been sour when I went in on Friday was I'd even been overdrawn on my checkbook, and money somehow resolved itself. I don't know how these things work. But my point is, I felt this great upwelling of gratitude and devotion for that change. Yogananda said, devotion is not a put-up job. Devotion is not something you fabricate out of the ether because you're supposed to have it. It's the natural love of the heart awakened in response and in relationship to the divine, to a developing and growing relationship with God. And it's worth cultivating. We had a beautiful weekend. It was the second part of Raja Yoga. It was Patanjali. And we talked philosophy all day long and Friday night, and we were really into it. But we kind of had exhausted the topic. We kind of had filled the brain cells to overflowing. And so we were asking, well, what do you want to do tonight? You want to go have a yoga posture session in another part of the Laurelwood, or do you want to? And we decided that we would just have a devotional evening. We just have an evening of practice. And so we made an altar. We brought out sacred items. We have, a statue of Jesus in meditation. There's a beautiful picture of all of our masters meditating together around a campfire high up in the Himalayas. And we put that at the center of the altar, brought flowers in. There's a little gift from a sacred item. We had a little statue of St. Francis blessing somebody who's got health issues. We just filled the altar, put up lots of candles, and then just chanted and prayed and meditated deep in the stillness. We chanted at the chakras. We spent time in the stillness. And, we all came out of it with just this deep sense of wonder and joy and freedom and love awakened inside. We have to do the philosophy because if you don't have the mind engaged, it will rebel when you do these things. But once you have the philosophy, you have to go into it. And Yogananda said, when we pass this world and the life review, you know what it'll be? It won't be all the mistakes. He said, what you will remember and what will shine are the moments when you were close to God. The moments when your heart touched eternity. And that's cultivated in devotion. It's love that builds that bridge. And then with an awakened devotion, you look around at the world and you see God looking back at you everywhere. You see God looking back at you through your friends, through the flowers. You feel God in the breeze. You feel Him in the mountaintops. You feel Him in the service you are offered, you're given the ability to provide. But it's in that emotion. I loved Gangamata's reading because I'd heard a translation for aloha, and it confirmed it. We meet in the breath of God. Aloha. Thank you. Okay.
There's joy in the heavens, a smile on the mountains, and melody sings everywhere. The clouds are all laughing to welcome the morning. Your soul is as free as the air. The clouds are all laughing to welcome the morning. Your soul is as free as the air. Leave home in the sunshine, dance through a meadow, or sit by a stream and just be. The lilt of the water will gather your worries and carry them down to the sea. The lilt of the water will gather your worries and carry them down to the sea. Men hunger for freedom, but don't see their dungeon is only the thought that they're bound. Desires of their shackles, the hope that tomorrow the doorway to joy will be found. Desires of their shackles, the hope that tomorrow the doorway to joy will be found. There's joy all around us, why wait till tomorrow? We've only this moment to live. A heaven within us is ours for the finding, a freedom no riches can give. A heaven within us is ours for the finding, a freedom no riches can give. There's joy in the heavens, a smile on the mountains, and melody sings everywhere. The clouds are all laughing to welcome the morning. Your soul is as free as the air. The clouds are all laughing to welcome